Okay, you're on.
All right. Good morning. It's Monday, March 22nd, Tuftonboro Board of Selectmen's meeting. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have any public input? Yes, Joe.
Per our conversation on March 12th down at the town office, one of the things that kind of stuck to me was, I understand it was a posted regular meeting and it should have said non-public, but that wasn't the issue. You had said that we don't have to post non-public sessions, but anytime the selectmen meet, doesn't it have to be posted? You were under the impression apparently that it doesn't.
So any time we meet, the selectmen can go into non-public session.
Yes,
It does not have to be posted in advance that there may be non-public session.
but at the meetings, when we look at today's meeting, there's a statement at the bottom of the direction today that we may or may not go into non-public.
That's
Which is
correct.
all, that wasn't, the issue was, the idea was that maybe I didn't think I heard it wrong, but that's what I thought you told me. And anytime you people meet, regardless of what, I thought it had to be posted. I just get a newsletter.
That is correct. Anytime there is
fine.
a meeting, it has to be posted.
Right.
Um,
And the other thing was, I was asking Kathy already this morning, but she had explained it to me. I see the minutes of the meeting for the 12th, and it says work session, and then it says non-public, which is all fine and well. And she explained someone else had come in, so you went into a work session, then you went into non-public. Okay. Just comments, I'm making those comments, and we haven't been here for a week, so I haven't. So, anyhow. Oh, senior moment. Did you have the planning board Thursday night?
Was I there? Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you hook up the camera?
The camera was not running on Thursday night.
Was not, okay, thank you. That's all I want to know.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It was available online, audio only, on a real-time basis, and I don't know if she posted the recording of it online. But
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but the camera was not running on.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I have a question from a member of the public, unable to make a 9 o'clock in the morning meeting. He'd like to know if we have settled our issue with access to Lower Beach Pond.
No,
No.
it's going forward.
It's an ongoing issue.
Okay,
It's Superior Court.
In that case, how do we advise that if they do access Lower Beach Pond, what do we tell these folks? What can they do? He's an avid fisherman, wants to put his aluminum boat in there.
He can put it in right
Can still
there
do that.
at the inlet. Right.
Okay, great, thank you, that was
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Getting to be that time of the year.
Yes, it is. Well, and I went by Saturday morning and there were a bunch of people that were parked along there and were out on the lake fishing. So, yep, good.
Thank you.
Nice to see access being used, for sure. All right, first I would like to welcome Guy as a member of the Board of Selectmen. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And look forward to a productive year.
Well, I have every confidence that you and Chip will help me learn this job. It'll certainly make it easier on everybody.
Well-
And I got a lot to learn.
Well, we all work at it together.
Thanks.
All right.
Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to continue our policy that's been ongoing now for years and years and years, that the chairman's job pays a little more, but asks an awful lot more. But we've alternated that for the annually we've alternated it. I'd like to nominate Bill Markison to be chair this year.
I can second that.
Well, thank you, and I won't step back. That comes with the territory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Well, thank you. All right, let's move on to the first item, which is review and approval of minutes. You should have copies in your packet. First is it's actually Tuesday, March 9th.
Right.
The regular meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? I didn't see anything other than the day.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Oh, I had Monday on there?
You did.
Oh.
Well, it's your normal template, and we normally meet on Mondays, so
Yeah.
that's right. All right, and I will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll have
Opposed?
to abstain
Since you
since I
were-
wasn't there.
Got it? Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Next, we have the non-public from Monday, March 9th, 10:17 a.m.
I'll move approval.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Once again, I abstain.
Understandable. Friday, March 12th, work session. They look good to me.
I'll move approval.
I take that back. It's, her name is, you've got it right in the first line, Mary Ann Murray, but down below you've got it Mary Ann Murphy.
Oh, thank you.
And Gordon, I think, also is E.N. Gordon, oh, O.N., I'm sorry. You got an A in the first line,
Oh, thank you.
all right?
So I'll move approval as amended.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, but I would like to take just a minute to thank Mary Ann for her years of service to the town.
Absolutely. Done a great job.
Untimely resignation.
Yep. All right, and the final is non-public from March 12th. Does that look good? I don't have any changes.
I guess I can't change it, but I do remember saying I wanted it based on, I guess it is there, per diem. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Abstain again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Before we move forward, I do want to pause for a moment and recognize the passing of Bill Williams on Saturday.
Oh,
He is a former selectman and for many, many years maintained the traditional burial grounds in town with
Yes, he did.
mowing and branch cutting and that sort of thing. He'd been in declining health for a number of months, and so he's, I think, 91 or 92. Anyway, my condolences to Barbara and the girls, and sorry to see that somebody who's lived essentially his whole life in town passed, but it happens. All right, let's move on to fire department.
He's ahead of me.
Yeah, we're gonna do the police first. We'll go
All right, all right, we'll do police first. Come on up, Andy.
because you have to do the thing for Bill.
Oh, yes, you're right, thank you.
Yeah.
Having another senior moment here.
And just so you know, you got something in from Dan Bernard that you might want to look at and see if you want to answer.
I think he sent it to you as well, right?
Yeah, he sent it to me,
Yeah.
Okay.
to, yeah, I know, some of these questions as to the
So I would suggest that we work on answers. If you want to sit down later in the week and kind of work on
yeah,
them.
because some of these are really not in my wheelhouse.
No, that's right, and some are, but as a group, I'm confident that we can adequately address them.
Yeah.
So really, the first item with you, before we get to your report, and Kathy reminded me, I had some conversations with Phil last week relative to the siting of the new facility. And in order to be able to submit the drawings for costing,
Yeah.
they have to go through USDA for their review before any costing we do would be deemed as eligible. And that includes having it sited on the ground. We had two different alternatives we were looking at, and we had been holding off as long as we could to deal with it. I guess my thought, and I think you and I shared this, is with respect to designing the facility, whether it's in location A or location B, the actual building is going to be the same. But part of this, I guess, is the siting. So I told Phil that we would give him a site location this morning. If we have to change it in the future, we decide to change it, we will. But I'm persuaded that he needs an actual location before he gets the drawings through USDA and to costing. So I think you've got
I've seen it all.
You've got copies of both locations.
Quite heavily this weekend.
I'm sorry?
I studied it quite heavily over the weekend.
Oh, my. Okay. Chip, your thoughts?
Well, I'm still convinced we need to not be flat to the road. I think setting it at an angle makes more sense to me. I think Phil's gonna have to come up with a lot more reasoning than he's come up with so far as to how any siting differential is gonna affect the cost. But I guess that's a discussion for another day. I think I'm in agreement with you that, you know, if we change it 3 months from now, before we dig the hole in the ground, but we change it.
Right.
I'm not familiar enough with the bureaucratic machinations of the grant proposal to
Nor am I.
answer me that.
Yeah.
This is Guy's first opportunity to weigh in. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm coming into this so late in the game here. Chief, what kind of an impact do you think you'd have on the function of the building by turning it at 10 degrees or whatever it is there?
I don't think it's gonna have much of an impact at all. I mean, I know Phil's tentatively laid out some parking. I wonder if it could be moved a little bit to change it. One of the reasons that we had to move it was because the original drawing had a slight impact on the wetlands.
Mhm.
The engineers said that's a minimal impact, the way it was only like a couple feet into that slope
Right.
that goes down to that brook. But it was enough that the USDA said, no, we will not approve anything that has any impact on wetlands at all, even if it's permitted by the state. So we had to move it back or twist it a little bit. I think twisting a little bit aesthetically would be a little better. You know, the flow of traffic around it is pretty much the same, I think. I don't see a huge efficiency difference between the two for us. It's the same building, just whether it's twisted or straight. As far as parking goes, Phil's expressed some concerns about some of the slopes and stuff. I wonder if that can be made up a different way for parking, as far as moved a different way. Realign the parking maybe a little bit, could address some of that. His
Maybe in the
concern.
back.
In the back, yeah.
Sounds to me like turning it shouldn't be an issue.
There's still quite a lot of material on that lot. So
Yeah.
moving
Yep.
things around is gonna be hard. I mean, keeping a building on virgin land is important if we're gonna go slab on grade, but as far as a driveway and parking lots and that sort of thing, that can be important.
My only concern, I guess, with respect to rotating it is, it's hard for me to envision with rotating it as they did, exactly how it's gonna appear from the road. But I can't look at it today, obviously. And, I mean, as I drive around, sometimes you come up against things that you think, why is it located like that on the property? It just looks kind of odd. And I'm not saying that that would be the case here, but just the potential. So,
He hasn't
I'm
given,
hearing-
he hasn't given us a view from the road, a design draft, because he
Yeah.
twisted.
An elevation would be good.
yep, it would. So what I'm hearing is it makes sense to go ahead and make a move, and tell them to move toward the rotated
Yeah.
building.
Definitely.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you send him a text and tell him that?
Are you doing a vote on it, or you just want me to say you're going with rotating?
We can do a vote, that's fine.
Need to vote?
I don't know that we need to vote.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion and
I'll move a vote to rotate the police department.
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
And did you settle the ADA?
Bathroom issue, changing area issue.
Right.
We have a call at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't know.
ADA, I'm sorry, not
It's
ADA.
ABA versus ADA codes. A
Yeah.
Slight difference.
Right.
I think he addressed one of the issues that was raised, but the bathroom area, one of the bathrooms has to change.
So is that going to accommodate public access to an ADA bathroom, or is that already handled?
That is already handled, but they all have to be ABA compliant.
And the B, what's that acronym? American Ballistic or something?
Building Association, I don't know what it is, just a slight variation in the codes. The difference is, from my understanding, ADA has certain exemptions
Yeah.
for like workspaces that would not be accessible to the public, maybe. That you could say, nope, you don't have to have that compliant. For example, in the fire station, the second floor has a lot of the mechanicals. We can't have our mechanicals like that. They have to be ADA accessible. They have to be accessible, I shouldn't say ADA. Just two accessibility standards. One, they give some exemptions, one, they don't give exemptions. So with ABA, you can't have inaccessible, the whole thing has to be accessible. That'd be an example. That'd be rather dramatic, we're on one floor, so it's not like,
Right.
but that's one example of where that would be different. So there's some, like the changing area for officers, there was a question about that. No, it has to be accessible for, even if we had an injured officer or or an employee that was perhaps has some accessibility issues. So that's where it had to change somewhat for space around a sink, I think is how we would do it. Basically, it took the bathroom, which was a shower with a separate bathroom. There's a shower changing area with a bathroom, and you had to combine both. And that changed the span a little bit. So there's you had to jockey, that's one of them. The closet for the maintenance stuff, the vacuum and stuff like that, that had to be accessible. So we had to change the doorway around on that house, where that was entered. There we go, that's one of those ones where ADA versus ABA mattered.
So you're
It's a minor
still,
twist, and I don't.
still working through that stuff.
2 o'clock this afternoon, we're gonna meet and talk about it, and I have no,
So is that the last remaining question? I mean, you've got, what, 3 pages of inquiry from Heather Malone, or 2 pages?
those are the last things that Phil directed to me.
Okay.
I don't know if there's others.
The rest of this he's handling?
I believe so, like the lawyer issue.
I spoke with, Rick, sent him an email of what they needed. He asked some questions of Phil. I just going by the chain of emails. And, so he's supposed to have that done this week for him. So that was the other thing, that was a big deal with the USDA.
Okay.
And then I did get an email from KI saying, oops, yeah, we're gonna see an increase over this year, like mid-year. So,
5% increase, is that what?
yeah, so I've asked for a new updated estimate.
And all of their cabinetry falls within this ABA requirements?
I believe so, yes.
Because I noticed that was one question here. Upper cabinets and lockers to meet storage requirements for ABA.
I will have to run it. I thought Phil was working on that. That's why he moved one of the lockers too.
Yeah, I just don't want, some niggling little thing to trip this up.
I will verify with that. I know that the desks and stuff were all set to be like that, but I don't know about, well, the lockers are, yeah, the lockers were Phil was doing the lockers through Cobb Hill.
Okay.
The other thing that came up this week was, got a call from the co-op about a contact from somebody from Vermont Engineering about the electrical service questions. So I had to contact Phil to find out, to get that figured out as to what that was about and give a thumbs up to the co-op to talk to this. It's the MEP engineers from Vermont, but co-op won't release any information without
Right.
our approval, so I did give that. I was a little concerned that the address was not quite correct, but I fixed that. I don't want them going to somebody else's house looking at the service.
All right. Anything more on the facility at this point?
No, I think we're good.
I do share your concern, though, that whatever USDA needs, or anybody needs at this point, beyond what they have, we need to make sure we get a comprehensive list and chase them down.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we're seeing out of USDA now were things that we didn't know about
Right.
a month ago.
Well, I think part of it was Phil was concentrating on the design in the building, which goes to not Heather Malone, but somebody else. There was another name. Because they have an architect that reviews the plans themselves, and that's where the question of ABA compliance came up with a few things. So that's where a lot of the correspondence was. Then once that got done, Heather Malone didn't get a lot involved, if you will, until the architect their architect said, yeah, everything looks good. Like there was a question of the costing, which they went back and forth on. But that's where sometimes, I think that's what happened in a sense is until the architect said yes, their architect, USDA architect said yes, this meets our standards, were they gonna?
Then Heather was not interested in anything until then. Is that?
She'd given some lists of stuff,
Yeah.
general stuff that needed to be done, which we got done, the historical and the environmental. But then it actually came down to a few other things after that, letters and contracts, although contracts and stuff that was mentioned early on. But anyway, I know there was discussions about it, they had to meet the AIA standards and they needed copies to show that. I know Phil had mentioned that with you a few times, but.
That got sent a long time.
That got sent a long time ago, but, so Heather did get involved with some of that stuff, but. Anyway, that's, I think, why some of the stuff came up later, though, was.
Okay, let's move
Second
on to
review.
your regular report.
So, gave you the statistics, our motor vehicle stops are down. Everything else is pretty much the same. Felonies are down, but that was kind of, and offenses are down, but that was more of an anomaly. We had January 1st of last year, we had a little one-person crime spree. And that person is spending several years in state prison and is already gone. So they broke into vehicles and attempted breaks and some other things, stole some guns, so.
Yep.
So, I don't think we are, aside from motor vehicle stops, things are pretty much consistent.
So why the big drop in motor vehicle stops? And
Well, part of it is because at this point, up to this point, we haven't had some administrative help, so we're all kind of doing some stuff that's part of it, and there's also part of it.
not as much time on the,
For some of us,
yeah.
for some of us. For me, I'm consistently been the second in the department for getting car stops. I've been in the office doing paperwork, so I won't say that's all of me, but
I can say that I drive a lot slower this time of the year with the roads being as rough as they are as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
yeah, it happens every year though, so
No doubt.
I won't use that as an excuse.
It could be a reason, not an excuse.
Yeah.
I have a question from the public.
Okay.
They read in the town report with your statistics, and you had some 6,000 calls for service. They'd like to know what a call for service might entail. A few examples, don't get real carried
It
away.
could be anything from the shooting we had a few weeks ago to somebody calling, somebody filling out a pistol permit application.
Okay.
So it's from the sheriff's department, so it would cover, well, another call for service would be if they serve civil paperwork on somebody. It's within the jurisdiction of the town. Because to try and split it out further than that becomes a little more difficult.
Okay, so it's not always you actually performing a call for service. If the sheriff's department serves, they have to notify you that they did it?
No, not if they did it, not a civil paperwork, no.
Okay.
They don't do a whole lot of calls other than civil paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
but they do some to help us out sometimes, but that usually is on the same call. So if they come to a call with us,
Yes.
like the shooting we had, state
Right.
police came, and sheriff's department came and helped out at one point, that was one call for service. On the flip side, if they come and serve a civil paper saying like an eviction notice or a small claim notice, that would not involve us necessarily.
Good.
So a call for service is anything where somebody has to address it somehow. I won't say respond, because sometimes they're phone calls that we have to deal with, but it keeps a record for contact.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. And how are things coming on the administrative assistant?
Doing the background, working on that. She had to fill out a bunch of paperwork for the background, and she didn't swear to it, so we had to have her come back in and swear to it. And we're running the criminal and motor vehicle, and we have to send the fingerprints to the state to go to the FBI. And so as soon as that's done and everything checks out with references, we should be good, hopefully within a week or two. That's,
So we can hope that the 1st of May will have, or 1st of April will have
I hope so.
something in place.
I hope sooner, if I can, I will. Trust me. Like I said, there's a lot of paperwork she had to fill out for background information, and we have to kind of look through that, but then that takes some time to collect. And then it wasn't signed, sworn to, so she'd come back and swear to it, and she got fingerprinted, that sort of stuff, so. Hopefully, certainly would like that.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
I have none.
Good.
All right, thanks, chief.
Yep. The last 2 computers were installed in the cars from last year. Everything finally came in, so we got them installed Wednesday. We had a little glitch in that one of the cars broke down before we could get it there, so we were down to, we had 2 vehicles in the shop and one having kind of a part to have a computer put in it too, but Gotta say, shout out to, one of the Whiting's Garage and Osprey towed one of the newer Tahoes at the start ago. Towed it and had it done within a couple hours, and we were able to get that one updated with computer too, while the guy was still here, rather than a second trip. So, we still have, we finally, they're all back. Truck needs to go in the shop and have some stuff done now, that others are back, so.
All right, thank you. Chief Thompson, come on down.
Thank you.
As of March 22nd, we've had 43 fire calls, 52 medical calls, 15 service calls, and 2 special details for a total of 112. We've had 9 burner inspections, 5 oil burner inspections, 1 wood pellet stove inspection, and 6 life safety. I had a typo there that I had found when I was just reviewing that, and I'll correct that, Kathy, with the paperwork that I sent you.
Okay, thank you.
The department trained with Molten Burl, Center Harbor, and Sandwich at a live building burn training on 109 Red Hill Road on 3/20 of 21. The training went well, and all personnel that took part gained a tremendous amount of experience with the live building burn. I noticed that there was a balloon test behind the fire station in the wooded area on Sunday. I had received a phone call in reference to what the balloon was there. Obviously, it was a test for the cell tower site. It was there most of the day and then gone shortly before evening, I would say, so it wasn't a balloon test. The department has outfitted Edward Garrett with past members' gear, as well as 3 other new members that have joined the department before him. Due to COVID-19, there is currently an approximate 6-month turnaround time for any new gear that we're receiving. With the town meeting being in May, we will not be able to order or receive new gear until approximately October if the budget is passed in May.
Let me just clarify here. So we can continue to spend at the same rate that we did last year. All right, so if this is a normal expenditure,
Yes.
you don't have to wait until after town meeting.
Okay.
It's only something that's gonna increase us beyond
Okay.
what we've done in the past.
Where gear costs, 5 sets would be $17,075. It's a fairly large amount, so I just want to make sure.
And would it put you beyond your budget?
No,
Okay.
no, it will not.
Yeah.
It just is a fairly substantial item
Yep.
as far as purchase-wise that,
Yeah.
before town meeting, I didn't know if that was something that needed.
Well, that should be fine.
I mean, there's no way, shape, or form that it's gonna, that the gear is gonna be here before town meeting, anyways, as far as it goes. So we're not gonna have that bill, but it would be good to be able to order it, to get it in the process, in the pipeline as far as it goes.
Yeah, so if there were, let's say, a $50,000 expense that was something that had been added to the 2021 budget that you didn't have covered for the year before,
Right.
that'd be one thing.
Well, we had 6 sets
Yeah.
the prior year.
Right,
We reduced it by one.
right.
So,
So I think you're good to go, order.
So that would go into new equipment,
yes.
so you had $24,000 to pay.
Yep.
Okay.
That was something I just wanted to make sure that it was okay to do, because it is a fairly substantial amount.
Yep.
All right, so we had a total of 6 new members. One member we were able to outfit him with equipment that is within date of the 10-year cutoff or replacement date, and it correctly fits him. So. Training for all new members is still ongoing. The current certified new members are getting used to how the department operates. The other new members, which have no fire or EMS training, are starting to get signed up for Firefighter 1 or EMT classes as they come available. It looks like that there will be a class that is run in our area, and we will be hosting it at our central station. And that will be put on by the state of New Hampshire. And that's at 189 Mill Road, obviously. Car 1 has gone to Weston Auto Body for an estimate for rust problems on 3/17. The estimates will be emailed, and any work will be completed after the new budget approval. Department hose testing will take place on April 6, 2021, which, if weather allows, we have approximately 17,480 feet of hose for testing. The ladder testing will take place the same day by the same company. There's 14 ladders, and the company is Field Safe Ladder and Hose Testing. This testing not only satisfies NFPA standards for testing the hose and ladders every year, but also counts for points towards our ISO ratings, which calculates the insurance ratings for the complete town. The company provides all documentation that is needed for that, so that we can keep it on file. Fire Rescue Department would like to publicly thank John Bolton III of 206 Mountain Road for his donation of PPE, and which included masks and cleaning supplies. He had called us one day and asked if we could use any, and obviously we said yes as far as it goes. So. Totals for ambulance billing received for 2020 are attached on the back. And that is what we have received so far as payments as of 12/31/20, or services that were provided to 12/31/20. And the highlighted $8,411.16 is what has been collected for that time period.
So you got $4,572 in receivables here, which is about 20% of your net charges. When do you expect to get paid?
That all depends on insurance companies and how, as far as when it comes in, or if people, as far as private pay, pay their bills, as far as that goes.
Well, it looks like the balance owed is all Medicare.
So that would be totally up to when they send that out.
So is there a billing issue? I mean, should we be calling them?
Usually it's not a billing issue. Usually and we have been following up with the different stuff, is that, depending on when Medicare pays out, or if it's they have a third insurance, as far as a supplemental insurance that takes up. Sometimes there's follow-up that needs to take place with
New
that.
Hampshire Medicare, we did 9 calls and there's $236 left to pay. But Blue Cross, Medicare, and WellMed Care are your two biggest delinquents.
Right. Blue Cross is very slow at paying,
Yeah, no kidding.
as far as that goes. And they sometimes need follow-up as far as, from what I've seen, with that to see. Sometimes Blue Cross pays, depending on the plan, sometimes Blue Cross pays directly to the person that was transported. And then some of the plans, not the case. But you don't know that until you call and find out if the person was paid direct. In some cases, you'll see that if the person was paid direct, then they keep the money and wait for someone to call and say
I know the
that,
note.
So you're not automatically notified when they pay the bill?
we are notified as far as if someone has paid the bill when they inquire, or when the company inquires.
All right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
You're on the second paragraph, I think, on page 2.
And I was just looking at, if you have any further questions about that, I can follow up with that
Yeah,
with you.
I'll check that out.
I'm continuing to follow up with the state to try to finish up the town's emergency operation plan as EMD. Our representative for the area is no longer with the state of New Hampshire, and they're in the process of filling her position, so that has slowed down things there. COVID has definitely slowed down anything as far as state-wise with the plans and things. I've also made a couple calls and emails reference our all hazards plan. It will be completed through the Lakes Region Planning Commission. The Lakes Region Planning Commission had received a grant in reference to the all hazard plan. We have to have the all hazard plan in place to get future grants in some cases, as far as so if we needed to be reimbursed for, say, a storm came through, tornado or something like that, that would affect us in able to collect the money from the state and the federal government to get that money back if we don't have a current plan in place. It doesn't affect all grants. I don't believe it would affect the police department USDA grant or the radio grant that we're applying for, but it does affect as far as the hazard type grants that are out there. So we're in the process of getting that situated. COVID has slowed that process down. We need to get a group of people together, and as soon as I hear back from Susan Slack from the Lakes Region Planning Commission, Dave Jeffers had referred me to her because she's handling our updates. And as soon as I hear back from her when that we need to get that group together, there is a list of who we had on the group in 2015 that basically consisted of myself as far as EMD, a Tufton Borough Fire Department member, a selectman. The police chief was on that. Jack was on that as far as health and code officer, a planning board member, a road agent, 2 citizens or business owners, and a member from the school. At that point in time, it was someone that was in charge at the school. On 3/2/21, strong winds came through, took down trees, wires, blocked the roads in a couple different areas and caused hazards. Fire department worked with, in conjunction with the police department, highway department, and New Hampshire Co-op to mitigate these issues in several different areas. All seemed to go well. Pictures of how bad the lower end of boat 1 motors are circulating around, and a couple taps of a screwdriver caused the holes that you see in the lower ends of these units.
So is this case covering replaceable, or what's this?
We were both, as last year, we had, you had voted to replace the lower ends of the motors. That was done under winter work. And that was why that it was replaced, because it was so badly corroded.
So last
is
year
this-
you replaced the lower ends?
The money was encumbered,
They did it over the winter.
and it was done over the winter.
So this has been repaired?
Yep, that was just to show you
How bad it was.
how bad it was as far as it goes. You couldn't see it from the outside, you can see it from the inside when they looked in.
So did you get any indication from Marina if this is typical of these units?
It was typical of some type of electrical current, possibly as far as water-wise, that is causing the erosion. They're suggesting that we keep the engines tipped up and out of the water. They said it could be caused by stray current, actually in the water as far as it goes.
So those are aluminum cases, is that?
Yes. Yes, they are. They're both, they're Honda 150s, and they were 2008.
Wow, it's been that long, huh?
Yep.
And the lower units are gonna start with a new warranty on them?
I would assume that the lower end is warranted, and I will find out how long the warranty is for the new half of the engines as well.
Thanks.
Mhm. So once the process is going with the all hazards, we'll need to get that group together. I don't know which of the select board would like to be on that, but we'll need a select board member for that.
Any volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
There you go.
All right, we're ready.
Aye.
Let me know what's going on, Adam. I'll
Okay.
take care of it for you.
Yep, we will let you know. I'm hoping to hear back from her shortly so that we can get that situated. The continued radio upgrades are in the process still for the communications to try to get them better throughout the Austin Valley Mutual Aid, which is obviously from Wolfboro to Milton to Tama, and obviously over to our side. We're working in conjunction with Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Austin Valley Mutual Aid, and the state of New Hampshire to finish up the grant process that was received by Carroll County and Austin Valley Mutual Aid for the radio upgrades. Currently, the last part of that is the Wakefield area, and then we will start with the Austin Valley Mutual Aid trying to upgrade some of our tower areas to get them to be part of the simulcast if possible, to make it better as far as radio communications. And also just checking to see if it's still okay to use the Gould property as far as the training area. If so, some minor modifications will take place with the second floor windows as glass panes are falling out on those. We'll put ladders up to them and,
So you're talking about the house?
yeah, the house itself. At one point in time, the select board had okayed us to do training, non-destructive training, with the house as far as, laddering the building as far as SCBA training in through the building and stuff like that. The upstairs windows would have to be modified a little bit to make it safe for people to go in and out of them, so that glass is not falling on people as they, we put ladders up against the building and stuff like that. The glazing and stuff is coming out of the panes, and they're just, without really touching them, they're starting to come out. So is that something that's still okay?
Is that something your department would handle?
Yes, and we're actually going to clean up a little bit more around it and make it a little bit better as far as site-wise. We did take a complete dumpster of stuff that was out of there at Your OK before, so the building has been cleaned out completely to include the scrap metal furnace thing that was in the basement and everything that would be a hazard. So that has all been cleaned out. But our department would handle that under our training section.
Yeah, it makes sense to me to continue to use it.
Okay.
Seems like the only logical choice for the building at this time. It's not really gonna be
Yeah.
used for anything else.
And if anything changes, please let us know.
Yeah.
As far as you have different plans with it, or do you have anything further?
So you had a balloon test for the cell tower?
Yes. I hadn't seen
I wasn't
any.
informed of that.
Yeah, I didn't see any emails or anything like that in reference to it. The only test that I had heard about was, that they were gonna do one on Tufton Road Neck at some point in time. I didn't know about this one.
I
Did
didn't-
they actually do a balloon test?
Yes. Sunday, I had received a call asking what the balloon was behind the station from a neighbor.
I think it was noticed in the paper.
For
Yes.
this one?
Yeah.
I think they have to,
Yep.
did it for both.
I saw it
You saw
on
it?
the Duncan property.
But for the Gould property, that was not.
Well, they went by the address number. But
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you physically see the balloon there?
Yeah.
looked for it.
I've got a
Around.
picture of it.
Okay. And everything, do you have a comment? Any problem?
It doesn't, it doesn't seem that tall, if that's 130 feet, it doesn't seem that big, as far as it goes. It just comes up above the trees. And I meant to send that picture I'll send it later on to Kathy so you can see that. I didn't send it to an email. But it didn't stick out, obviously. You see a bright red balloon that is there, that sticks out quite a bit. But I think that there was a test also done at Sodom Roads. Caleb mentioned something about the balloon was popped in a tree or something like that.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Anything further for Chief Johnson? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Enjoy this weather.
Oh, and the only last thing is that obviously we're getting towards, the snow is going away, so permits will be required as far as burning, outside burning, all the laws will take effect.
Okay.
We're in the awkward stage right now that people are calling to report people burning without snow or complete snow cover, and we're following up on that as much as possible and trying to be as reasonable as possible to allow people to continue to burn, because the snow cover is there in the wooded areas, but it might not be right there around the piles or whatnot. But it is drying up quickly in some areas. Southern part of the state having issues with fires already.
So the requirement is if there's no snow on the ground, you need a permit.
You need a permit,
Okay.
no matter what. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Dennis, come on down. Good.
Just first, we had our commission meeting last Tuesday, and the one thing that came out of it, of course, is they want the selectmen to officially confirm our decision on the Wolfboro thing, rather than coming from me to their director. They just thought it'd be best if the selectmen, go ahead and forward whatever letter, response that, we're no longer be taking part in the resident reduction program. So that was one thing I wanted to share with you guys. The other thing is, they voted to put $5,000 away to help people with that same problem, that if they need help to register for Wolfboro, then we would, take care of that. And then finally, you're still talking probably $12,000. We'd like to take some of that and purchase a large screen outdoor data program to actually start this summer. It would be a situation down at the beach that we'd have one night of cornhole, one night of weekly movies, and one night of concerts. So I think it's a decision from you guys that's not a budgeted item, but it is money left over from the Wolfboro resident fee that we'd like to use immediately on that. But again, I think I would have to.
And when you were talking to Wolfboro, you never got any sort of calculation as to how many Wolfboro residents were?
What we actually spent, they won't do that. I had asked them that. I said, again, it's very simple. To use the example, $50 for a resident, say for a ski pass, which is more, non-resident $80. Well, that's $30. We'll pay that.
Right.
And she said the bookkeeping would be too hard to do it that way. And then, of course, I shared with the last meeting that she said that the money we're spending is not worth it, and that there's a small number of people that do ski or do skate, do use their camp, but basically she said these people are probably going to go anyway. So, again,
So how do you
commission voted, I spoke to you
how do
last
you
week.
notify the public about this fund that you want to create that is going to offset the charges? So I'm a family of 4 and I've got 2 kids that want to go skiing. How do I get the $60 that is going to be
Right.
going to?
I mean, we haven't set that up yet. We're up till April 1st, and again, they need a decision soon.
Okay.
Our budget with that money that we pay is up April 1st. So, again, the 2 things I'm asking for is for the selectmen to actually formally let them know of our decision. And the second thing is, can we go ahead and purchase the outdoor theater program?
Right.
All right.
I just don't want, and I'm probably in agreement to let the Wolfboro money stay here, but I don't want to put our citizens at a significant disadvantage and not have any notion of how to get back to where they were. And I don't know, is the Parks and Rec Commission gonna manage that, or are we
Yeah.
gonna have the town office manage it, or who's gonna
No,
manage it?
we would manage it. We'd make it known that there's funds available to help them with the resident fee, so, and we would manage that.
Okay,
Well, I will voice my opinion from before, and that is that when we discussed this in the past, ideally, it would be something that our people wouldn't even be aware of going on. In other words, we would pay Wolfboro the difference between what they pay as a resident and non-resident. We would reimburse them, if you will, rather than saying, well, if you go and pay the non-resident fee, then you can come to us and we'll give you the money back, because ultimately what that does is it discourages participation. traditionally, the contribution that we make to Wolfboro Parks and Rec for Tuftonborough's participation in it has been based upon population,
Right.
right? So it's
I think it was
it's a
2010.
formula based upon population of the town, not specifically directly based upon this is how much usage it is and that
Exactly.
sort of thing. Just like, is there a $30 non-resident fee, does that actually cover that cost that they have associated with it that's different? I think it's just a differential that's thrown in there. So I continue to be concerned, not for kids that have the wherewithal, the parents have the wherewithal, it doesn't make any difference. But we do have some kids in town that participate where that money would make a difference to them in terms of participating or not. And we throw some extra hurdles or procedures in the process, and it goes away. We lose them, we lose the opportunity for them to participate.
I think Kathy has,
Also, I have a concern, I don't know, he was saying they'd run the money. I don't know if that's okay for the Parks and Rec to take the money and run. I think it has to be done through the town. Because it's your money. I don't
Right,
know.
coming out of the budget as opposed to out of the Parks and Rec
Yeah,
Right.
fund.
yeah.
I think it has to stay within the budget of the town, so,
Right.
like, you know how you said we'll run the money, Parks and Rec? You could do that, but I think it has to be done through the town.
Right,
I
right.
don't think
So
you can have your own account for that.
you can administer the reimbursements, but they get paid out of the financial office, not out of something else. So,
Okay. Let's put one into play here. Okay, I got two kids, they wanna play whatever, I don't know what they do down there, anyway, soccer or baseball or whatever. And it's gonna cost $100. Do I come to the town and ask for $100? Meet out to Wolfboro Parks and Rec or whoever we pay? Or is it the expectation that I'm gonna go spend $100 and then bring a receipt back to the office and get reimbursed?
It sounds like to me Wolfboro don't want to handle any differences.
Right.
And we had asked that, and then they said, no, we're not set up to do that. And I said, so really, Christine, we don't know if we're, over the course of the year, we're spending $5,000, but it's just that $17,000 that sits there.
Right.
And you guys can't tell us the difference, so that's where we're stuck.
And they don't wanna get involved in a voucher system?
No.
Well, that can't be.
makes it hard.
And I think it's New Durham's going through the same thing, and they're voting not to reimburse. And I think because we made the stink, they got reimbursed from which they originally paid, which,
And it follows though that if we, let's say we set up a reimbursement program,
like,
we don't know how much impact this is gonna have on that $16,000. So it isn't as if we can spend $4,000 on a movie theater
right.
if we don't know what we're gonna spend on.
Oh,
I mean, I don't mind overspending a little bit, but it would be nice to have some track record as to what the expense really is.
yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to follow, you know, I mean,
They can't provide us with numbers on that, right?
I don't think they ever track it.
they won't.
I don't think they were.
You know, they,
They took the 17,000 and that was that. And Tufton Bros
right,
kids
but the
did what they did.
Tuftonboro kids are just treated as Wolfboro kids.
Right. That's how it always was when I was growing up.
Yep.
And sometime afterwards playing adult hockey, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty funny to me that their director come out and said, we're not getting our money's worth.
The director said what?
She come right out and said, what you're paying, you're not getting your money's worth.
Yeah, because
Well,
it's based on population.
So why would you say that?
Demographic is not 12 years old, it's, 60 years old or whatever. So there, I mean, there are kids here, but there aren't that many kids. I mean, I'd be more tempted to just say, and I don't know how you get the word out, but just say that Tuftonboro will pay the entrance fee for your kid to go to whatever. I mean, everybody isn't gonna come in and wanna have a free ride, but some people are gonna need more help than others. And it just seems like,
I know they need a decision, I know that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they wanna find out soon. To me, it's what's best for Tuftonboro, and if I can get 100 or 200 people at a movie once a week, as opposed to 12 families that are skiing or skating or going to camp,
right,
that's what makes sense. I mean,
So-
the director said it, our commission voted, it's in your hands, and we've gotta come up with something.
Well, that's right, and it's the board of selectmen are the ones that have to determine. But as we've told you before, if you want other money for other programming, right, then
Right.
that's something to request. That's different from saying, we have this money, we don't think it's being used well, so we want to use it for something else. So, and particularly if we're looking at transitioning from what we've done in the past to say we're going to take and spend it on something other than the program. So if you have a specific request for equipment that you want to buy, that should go in the budget.
I think our response is that 17,000, we're not gonna use it all.
right.
Well, do we even have a schedule of the fees for the various programs that they offer, and do we have that at our disposal?
What they offer,
Yeah. What does it cost for a kid to play hockey? What does it cost? Do we have that?
the three biggest things they got are the skating, skiing, and the summer camp.
Right, but do we have a schedule of the fees for that available to us?
It's in their brochure, in fact, their new brochure will be coming out soon.
Because
There is-
we could take 100 kids and do some kind of mental masturbation on it and try to figure out a number. I mean, it's a tough game. But without knowing what it actually costs, at least for me, I have a hard time with any of them doing that. And
I mean, I would love.
I know what you're trying to do is
Can we come up with a figure of 8,000, but I was told last year that 70,000 is gonna go up based on census from whenever it is, so.
Well, it may or may not, depending upon what
What we decide to
violation
do.
of 2020 was, right? So,
I mean, I'm not opposed to, from year to year, we've had occasions when we've said, okay, let's do this with a particular line item. And then the following year, if that becomes a tradition, we make another line
yeah.
item. So I'm a little less concerned about utilizing the part or all of the 16,000 for some different purpose. My major concern is notification of the public. Because, as you can see, we don't have a lot of participation in our meetings, although a lot of people watch us on television. But I want to make sure that everybody in Tuftonboro knows that there's a fund available to make these programs in Wolfboro accessible to all the children in Tuftonboro.
I mean, perhaps we could get a list of our people that do, and let them know the situation that they certainly can be helped out by
I
the.
mean, is this something that we could utilize the Tuftonboro Times? I know you write an article for them on their quarterly basis or whenever they have their, I mean, we have to have some form of notification.
So
Because-
here's my thought, all right? We don't have good past participation numbers for Tuftonboro kids from Wolfboro. But if we run the program as we did in the past, the amount that gets sent to Wolfboro for participation, and then we track numbers of Tuftonboro kids this year, we're gonna have a better idea of how many kids participate. Right?
I mean, that should have been done years past, I think.
We can't fix last year
No, I
or the
know.
year before, okay, to say, yes, it should.
And I just
So we're
don't
looking at-
know if that's gonna be available
Again,
to us.
You can ask the question. Again, we're asking questions that weren't asked before, right? We're equating dollars to something that may not be equatable. I mean, we look at it and say the $16,000, what that covers is the difference between the resident and the non-resident fee. I'm not sure that that's how that was ever looked at initially, going into this thing, but, so,
The figure that sticks out was $6.98 per person, based on the census.
okay?
That's what, you know, they come up with, so I don't know how that came up.
So, is that $6.98 per person for, but does this represent, for all the communities that participate? In other words,
Based
Yeah,
on
can
the
I go to
population.
Abenaki and buy a resident ticket? We should have, it should be free, but that's another discussion. So me as a 69-year-old, can I get a resident ticket or is it just for children?
You know, I don't know. This is, you know, new to me. I mean,
Okay.
like I told you, I mean, when I took the job day one, I was against it, and I'm still against it.
okay,
And again, you know, we had a full paint class the other night of 15 people. Well, I'm gonna bet you probably half of them were Wolfboro people.
Mhm.
You know, how many Wolfboro people come to our concerts? How many doing our cornhole? So, you know, we're getting there. Do we come back and say to them, we're gonna charge Wolfboro now more?
Well, we don't charge admission, do we?
So, I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it's just, if I'm paying for something, I wanna know what I'm paying for, and I don't know what I'm paying for now. That's the problem.
Right.
and neither does the new Parks and Rec director in Wolfboro, correct? Right.
Well,
So,
it
The
probably,
the
it probably
arrangement-
could, Bill, but they don't wanna take the time to do that.
the arrangement long predates any of the current players, right?
The what?
It predates all the people. that are-
Predates all of us here, you, the Wilpro Parks and Rec director, maybe the one before that. I don't know how far it goes back. I don't know how long this arrangement's been there. Has it been there
Oh,
back to,
it's a long
all
time.
right,
There was a lot more money back in the early 2000s. I mean, I know where it's been in the 20s, thousands of
Yeah.
dollars back then. I guess the other issue is, and who knows if it'll happen, but Wolfboro's closing its beaches to out-of-town residents. I mean,
Well, I think the task force hasn't come up with a decision yet. They're working on it.
well, there's a movement to do that. Will there be another movement to eliminate out-of-town residents from other
I
recreation?
asked that question. That was what the commission wanted to know. Are our people still available for Wolfboro programs, regardless of what we do with the resident fee? She said, yeah.
And that's,
until the answer's no.
that's really not her, that's kind of a.
I mean, they could change it.
Yeah.
They could.
But
Yeah. Well, I will make a motion that we fund the program with Wolfboro as we have in the past this year, and gather information associated with the questions that you have relative to usage through the year. And then as we get into the budget season for next year, we'll take a look at it.
That's your motion. You guys are in charge. I mean, I disagree with it. I think you're making a wrong decision, okay? That's my opinion.
I understand that, I understand
Okay,
that, but
I mean,
I'm.
you got a volunteer commission that has hopefully done some research and made a decision, and it comes back to you as a reversal.
So, and I told you early on that my concern is that it will impact negatively participation of our kids. How do we address it in a way that takes that out of the equation? And I haven't heard anything that says that we're gonna do it adequately, so that's
Okay.
why
The
I
only
put that
thing we
motion.
should come up with is that we would have a reimbursement program. We haven't set it up yet.
Okay, I'm gonna second it just for discussion.
Yep, all right,
So And when is this payment due? What's your understanding of when the payment's due to Wolfboro?
Say it again,
When do we have to pay Wolfboro?
we paid it.
No,
I
no.
remember this year, we made a formal request and they reduced it from the 16 something to 5,000.
So
So that's been paid and it's up until April 1st this year.
So all our expectation is to get $5,000?
Because they didn't run programs because of COVID.
That was from last
They
year.
still billed us almost 17,000.
Okay, but it was just,
I made the stink, wrote a letter to the town manager, the selectmen, it was on their agenda, and they made the right move by saying, you're right, we didn't run programs, why should we charge Tufton Bro this amount? And they reduced it to 5,000.
so when is the $16,000 due and payable?
Say, what,
Okay, we have $16,000 on the budget this year.
yeah,
When do we have to pay Wolfboro?
again, it probably won't be till next, whatever, we probably got the bill, I think Diane showed me, she got the bill probably February.
So we got the
So
bill.
typically, since I've been on the board, we've never been billed until late in the year. It's
Right.
like December, we get the bill from Wolfboro for the, because it's an outstanding item in the budget all year, not
But it
expended.
runs from April to the end
Right.
of March.
Right.
That muddies the waters even more.
Well, no, it gives us an opportunity. I think we have to appreciate Dennis's coming up here, volunteer. board.
Absolutely, but
Yep.
I mean, I would be more likely, and I'm gonna vote no against Bill's motion, just so you understand. I would be more likely to vote for your position if the plan for reimbursing the citizens was in front of me. So I knew how the child of some person somewhere in Tuftonboro was gonna participate and it was gonna work. I'd be more likely to say, okay, then let's do it internally, let's do it ourselves. But having no plan, it
Whose
doesn't
fault is
work.
that?
Okay, you don't have
They
to
just,
just,
we just voted that, you know.
no, you voted not to
But we
pay
didn't
the,
have, you know, we know we wanna set money aside, but
right,
we
okay, but what do
didn't
you?
come up with any plan yet.
Okay, and what I'm saying is that's your position. We're not, this $16,000 isn't gonna leave the house probably until December if it leaves at all. So we've got from now until then for the Parks and Recreation to put their plan in place.
But they need to know.
No, they don't. What they need to do is they've made a decision of how they want to operate that line item. And if they want to change the way it's operating and they want to implement a reimbursement plan, they need to bring that plan forward. It's not good enough to just say, we're not going to send Wolfboro any money anymore.
No, but
We have to accommodate the citizens with the ability to go to Wolfboro and do their, resident rate. And we're not gonna do it, we can't do it, we got too much other stuff to do.
So what do we tell Wolfboro?
What you tell Wolfboro is they can send us a bill in December, we may or may not pay it. Or you can tell Wolfboro, you won't give us the statistics we need to operate efficiently. We're gonna have to create those statistics ourselves. So we're gonna get into the business of doing that now. It could be as simple as figuring out how many students you have at the grammar school and multiplying that times whatever the rate is that they're charging, the difference in the rate between resident and non-resident. I mean, coming up with some number. Because right now you're guessing at the 5,000 or the 12,000 or whatever thousands you're thinking about. It needs to be statistically based, and Wolfboro's not helping you. So you're gonna have to do all the work yourself. How many, and I mean, if I lose my ability to buy a resident pass at Abenaki, it's not gonna kill me. But if the two kids that are living on North Line Road who, it's just beyond the budget to actually keep adding all these fees, can't go to summer camp, and that is a problem. So it's more the children at Tuftonboro that I'm concerned about. So it may be that you go to the,
I just don't know how they're gonna take that.
well, I don't care how they take it. I mean, that's really immaterial. They're not helping us. They're not saying, this is why you owe us $16,000. They're just multiplying our population by $6 and some odd cents. That's not a realistic statistic. It doesn't involve their cost of operation. I don't even know how they establish their pricing other than how much money they have to pay their help. But be that as it may, we have the ability now to say, okay, there are 120 students at Tuftonboro Central School, and this is the multiplier we're going to use for those 120 students, and we'll cut you a check for $8,000. We'll cut you a check for $6,000, and that's our offer. And if at that point Wolfboro says, no, that's not good enough, then all bets are off, I think, and then we're down to doing nothing as far as sending Wolfboro money. But I don't think, given what you've done already, you voted not to participate, but you haven't voted for an alternative. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that alternative.
I just don't create bad blood. I mean, I gotta work with this girl and we get along great. And
So how is it creating bad blood by telling her we can't tell her at this point? I mean,
With bad blood with your own
Bad blood,
commission.
all of a sudden you say we're gonna pay 8, they don't want it. That's where the bad
Well, then
blood.
don't do it. I mean, maybe that's above your pay grade. Maybe you shouldn't have to do that. Maybe we do that. I mean, if you come to us with a calculation that says the real cost, the real benefit of Tuftonboro's participation in Wolfboro's Parks and Rec is $5,000. I mean, you came up with a number that you wanted to hold aside. We can send a letter to Wolfboro and say, look, we've done the numbers, we figured it out. The real benefit to us is $5,000. Here's a check for $5,000.
And if they accept that,
Yeah,
the deal's done.
And as our population changes, we'll recalculate it, and we'll do it all on our side. You're not doing anything for us, so we'll do all the calculations.
So I just need to know, how would I tell them by April 1st what our decision is? I'm a little unclear on that.
Why do they
I
need-
understand a little bit what you're trying to say and
Right.
stuff, but what do I tell them in the next week before April 1st?
So, how does that affect what she's doing? Whether we're sending them the 16
I
grand?
don't know.
or
She just told me she needs to know by April 1st.
If we're participating in the resident
Whether
program.
we, so obviously a kid signs up April 15th for summer camp from Tuftonboro. I mean,
Do they sign up?
she's gonna sign him up as a Wolfboro resident. If we say we're gonna just not, continue what we've been doing. If we say we're not gonna do it, then she'll charge him extra money.
So at that point in time, they'll know who's coming from Tuftonboro, and they'll keep track of it. Yeah, right.
I hope.
Makes perfect sense. I mean,
To me, it shouldn't be a big deal. If everything's on computer, you can figure out who's from Tuftonboro.
right.
To me, it's not that big a deal, but they said they don't want to do that. And we had a couple of meetings. Brandon, we had a Zoom meeting with him. Brandon, our chairman, was with us, and he'll confirm that. I mean, so.
Okay, so you got a week.
So what I come back to is, I guess, where I started, which is, I'm not comfortable that our kids that are on the margin aren't gonna get left by the side of the road
Right.
if we're not participating in the resident program in Wolfboro. And how do I get comfortable with that? I mean, I think it's great that you're saying we'll reimburse them the difference, but some of these kids, the difference is not something that they can handle, or that the family is gonna handle. If it just becomes we're not participating.
But what if a program was set up that they can get reimbursed?
Then they have to
No,
know
no, no,
about
I'm sorry, so I have to show up with $50 to register if I'm a resident, or $80 if I'm not a resident. In some of these cases, $50 is a hard thing to do, $80 just doesn't happen. So it doesn't matter whether we'll give them money back, okay?
Right.
They don't have the money to begin with.
Right.
That's the issue. And that's why, you know, if there was a way to have it billed, or for us to give them a voucher, and even if we said, so we got this, you know, here's the deal, you get a voucher from us and you take it and you register, it's still one more step for them to go through to get there.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
for you and I, the step doesn't seem like a big deal, it's just straightforward. But their lives run much differently than ours do.
And I look at, I'm the welfare officer for Selectmen in Tuftonboro. And one would think with COVID-19 and unemployment and all the rest of it, that our welfare budget would be severely impacted. And it hasn't been. We've had 3 welfare cases all year. And what that tells me is not that people are not in need, it's that people don't like to ask. I mean, I would like to have the Parks and Rec response, or we can do the response, of saying, we will commit the $16,000 based upon a voucher, and every Tuftonboro resident that signs up in your programs, just give them a voucher, they'll come back to the town office and we'll pay it.
That also allows us to compile some data for a
Yeah, I
year,
mean, we've
Yeah.
gotta compile data.
right?
Yep.
So anybody from Tuftonboro that does wanna pay still gets to sign up. And they give that person a voucher that we pay out of the town office. And then they're signed up.
That's something they gotta agree to.
Right, yeah, I mean, well, okay. I'm asking you to buy a car for $16,000. Before you give me your $16,000, you want assurances from me that when it breaks, I'm gonna fix it. So it's a two-way street. They're asking for $16,000 from us. We need something from them other than just participation. I mean, it's not a lot. It's just the difference being that,
I can go back to and ask, that's all I can do.
yeah, I think I'd like to have that happen and maybe have you come back next week before the April deadline, whatever that might be.
I'll see if I can set up an appointment and talk to them again.
Because then we might be more likely to vote in favor of elimination or continuation.
Right.
So would you mind tabling your motion?
No, I'm happy with that. I made the motion because we've got to do something. So
Right.
got a motion, and I'm happy to table the motion, and we'll deal with it next time.
So when
But
you
again, from my perspective, how do we make it as easy for our kids to participate as we can? And throwing extra steps in the process, I know we'll sort some people out, and probably the people that would most benefit from it. Just because
Too cumbersome a process.
kids that live in families that are on the margin, there's not the level of structure in their lives that there are in some, and throwing one more step in the process is enough to just.
And maybe it is that the Parks and Rec, I mean, you've done a yeoman's job of bringing more and more programming to Tuftonboro. So we're just bridging a smaller and smaller gap all the time. I don't think you're gonna ever get to the point where you can run a summer camp for the number of kids we have here.
Disagree.
Right, so,
I disagree.
let me just.
Then that's
I mean, the
fine.
need is there. I mean,
I'm
there's
sure the
plans
need
I
is-
got for a half-day program and another half-day a full-day program. 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 in the afternoon.
So can we do that with that $16,000 budget?
We can't do it now, not this year, no.
So-
Okay,
So,
but that can be our goal.
So let me just throw this out as a thought process. If we said that we fully fund the total cost of anybody participating, not just the difference, the total cost of anybody participating in any of these programs, is that more than $16,000?
We don't know.
No, we don't. We don't.
But I'd be happy to do that.
I would too, to say we'll fund any Tuftonboro kid that wants to participate in any of the Wolfboro Parks and Rec programs, we'll pay it. The town will pay it.
Right.
And maybe it'll be more than $16,000 this year, maybe it'll be less than $16,000.
But at
Now,
least
we have
then
to- we
at
have to
least then
limit
we
it
know.
to- Exactly.
And at that point, I mean, I'd rather overspend the 16 grand at their resident rate in Wolfboro and make sure every kid in Tuftonboro has that opportunity. But also, our Parks and Rec has the opportunity to say, okay, there are 40 kids from Tuftonboro that went to the summer camp in Wolfboro. What would that cost us to have here? How can we program that here in Tuftonboro? So that in 2022, we're looking at a completely different Parks and Rec budget. We're looking at programming that accommodates for all of these things. We're not gonna handle Abenaki, although I guess we could build a ski area, but,
And a skating rink.
or a skating rink.
Right.
A lot of the skating rink, I mean, most of the kids are really into skating or going off to Dover and places. But we can start.
Reduce our dependence on Wolfboro is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Slow.
So I would sooner say that we keep the money in-house, like Bill said, and we'll pay 100%.
I agree. Does kind of put a cramp in Dennis's style, but we gotta think of the overall big picture.
So how long has this gal been in the job in Wolfboro? Not a lot long, right?
I'm not sure how long. Christina, I don't know.
So, I mean, I'm trying to think of when Ethan left.
Oh, no, was it
Ooh, that was a
5
while
years
back.
ago?
That was a while back.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, time flies.
I lose track, yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
is there any way we could have her attend the meeting?
I'll ask.
Well, yeah.
I think that would be beneficial.
yeah.
I'll ask him.
Because I think we're trying.
I'm not trying to fight you, I'm not trying to fight
No.
Wolfboro. I'm trying to continue to.
I told Guy when we had talked a few months ago, we gotta agree to disagree.
Oh,
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's fine, and accept it, you don't accept it, but you guys are the governing body and I work for you.
And it isn't as if,
If it gets to the point I don't like it, I'll go golf it.
well, we don't wanna tie the hands of the Parks and Rec. If you continue your growth in programming, I could see the day not too far away where this $16,000 or $20,000 or whatever we end up with ends up staying right in town. But we know at that point that we've made the decision based on statistics and fact.
I'll talk to them, that's all we can do.
And if you got members that wanna come in, have them come in. You know, or if they need to meet on a different schedule, we'll fit it
And
in
do that.
somehow.
I mean, complaints are legit, I mean, we wanna know what we're spending, as simple as that.
Yeah,
Right.
we're in total
But
agreement.
again, we're looking at it through a lens that I think is different than how it was set up. We're looking at this 16,000 as covering the difference between resident and non-resident fee, right? So I'd hazard a guess that that was not at all envisioned as to what this partnership looked like in the beginning, years and years
There
ago.
were no fees in the beginning.
No,
Yeah.
we went and did it. We
did,
skied at
but
Abenaki
they
from
did
grammar
it
school
before.
until we decided we didn't ski anymore.
Yeah.
That was pretty much what we did with Wolfboro's facilities in those days.
Mhm. So I think as things evolved, as user fees got associated with some of these programs, out of town, in town, it was disconnected from the funding mechanism from the towns that participate, separate from that. So now we ask the question, all right, so how many $30 does it take to get to 16,000? The answer is way more than we have, because it represents something different than what was in there.
Right.
And I wasn't around then, you weren't around then, the gal that's down there wasn't around then, so
So what would be the date that you'd like to see if you could come?
Well, our next regular meeting is on April the 5th. But we could certainly have a work session at some point between now and then, if that's,
So should I tell her April 5th?
April 5th is our next regular meeting, yep, 2 weeks from today.
There's a two Fridays between then and now.
Yep,
When we're gonna sign a check, so if the 5th doesn't work and has to be sooner, it would have to be one of the Fridays before the 5th, so.
Right? Works for me.
The 29th is
yep,
this,
this Friday or the following Friday, which is the second
yeah.
of, yep.
All right, I'll call
All right.
You're actually trying to drag a couple of towns into the 21st century, Dennis. And it's not easy.
Well, and it's two very different types of government.
Absolutely.
When we made that arrangement, there were 3 selectmen in Wolfboro, and Wolfboro was run, for all intents and purposes, like a little bigger Tufton borough. Now it's a completely different.
We're talking 50, 60 years ago when this all started.
Yep.
Can we move on?
Yep.
The next thing, which you guys need to make a decision on, I talked to Bill about it, and also Brandon, but we did get a call from the New Hampshire Boat Museum. They run a sailing program both for adults and kids, mainly right now for the Wolfboro Rec. They're unhappy with Cary Beach, the wind, the shallowness, the rocks, so they asked us if they could run a program at 19 Mile Beach, which would involve a lot of things. Long story short, as we're talking, he did mention they had extra sunfish, sailfish boats for kids, which my eyes opened up, that aren't being used. I said, well, first of all, let's attack the wind. We had a tent last year for the town picnic. The wind came in and blew it over the fence, so we do have wind there. The second thing is they asked to have a mooring, which would have to be approved by the state. We would have to apply. Just to cut through the chase and all that, we've had a Zoom meeting and 3 or 4 correspondence through the mail. They would basically this year be renting our facility. It would be run through Wolfboro, sign-ups, insurance, all that would be paid through Wolfboro. I talked to my commission about it. They were in favor. I said, I think number 1, it's good that we associate with them. Number 2, down the road, it might help us develop a kids program where we would then get into the insurance, paying the instructor, all that stuff. But they would give us the boats. They talked about that mooring, that they would like to put it to the left, so it wouldn't impact the concerts as the boats come in. They sent me a legal document, which says $1 a year. My commission wants to charge them $500 a year. They sent us applications, which they said Wolfboro would help us make out for the state to get okay to have a mooring. So again, my take on it is this year, again, would probably just be a site they're gonna use. Everything went through Wolfboro. It's 2 adult classes, actually. It's sailboat sharing and then keel boat. So they'd have 2 boats there. There's only 4 to 6 people in the class, 18 and over. But again, I think the future of it is gonna help Tufton grow by the fact that, we could then use all their sunfish, sailfish boats to run a kids program. So I think the big issue is the mooring. We'd have to apply for that. I've heard pros and cons on both ways, about the neighbors, all that stuff. So I'm throwing it all on the table to you guys.
So Kerry Lynch and I did have a conversation about it. He's the chairman of their board. But it's not clear to me how many moorings we're talking about.
Two.
2 moorings, so it's 2 boats, is that right? And he also mentioned they had some approach to how they get from the beach to the boats, and
They have a dinghy, which
yeah,
they tried to share. Where would it be stored? Would it be secure? Where would they put their gas? All that type of stuff. And I said, we do have a shed with, limited storage, but certainly, the dinghy would have to be chained up somewhere.
I'm gonna suggest that we invite him to come in and talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for sailing. I've sailed out in 19 Mile Bay a couple of times, and it's not as windy as you'd like it to be.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. It's a good sport to learn. I
So,
think it'll be an adjunct to your 19 Mile Bay programs.
yep.
I don't know about there'd be some staffing issues, I would think, if you get into the sunfish business. You'd have to have more personnel at the beach than you currently have. So there's a cost involved.
Yeah.
So now do we get to charge resident fee and non-resident fee? And how do we deal with Wolfboro residents that use our
I
sailboats?
gotta go take on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we can
Like
just
Cedric
wipe this
was
whole
doing.
thing out, and we'll provide the sailboat location and whatever for 16 grand a year. And then we're even.
Well, I would think, I like Bill's idea that we have a representative, it could be Kerry as well as not. Also, there's an abutter there that may have strong objections. I'd like to invite him as well if we were going to do that. And at least notify him of the idea that a
Well,
program
we
is
can
made.
notify him. I'm
Yeah.
not at all in favor of inviting him,
Okay,
because
Yeah.
he wants to control that whole beach,
He does.
and he doesn't own the whole beach.
that's true.
As well as the property across the road. He wants to
Yeah.
control that too. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I'll modify my statement and say we should notify him.
yeah, he'd have to be notified.
Is that Mr.
Although I
Watson?
believe he will attend if we do
Is
notify.
that what we're talking about, Mr. Watson?
Lassie, right?
Yes, yeah.
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 Because he's got pontoon boat, sailboat, three-way line.
Yeah, he's got a
Yeah.
marina
He's-
going on.
He's got a whole fleet. Yeah.
And they aren't all his, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think the next step is to have them come down and meet with us. I mean, as I said when we talked the other day, it sounds like something that could be workable.
Yeah.
And I do know that the boats have previously been moored, one at Brewster Academy, and Brewster has closed their mooring field to anybody outside the academy at this point. And the other one was over at Corinthian, and their demand among members for moorings exceeds their supply right now, so they've, like, apparently told the boat museum, we can't give you a mooring again because we got members that are waiting for moorings. So that's how they're,
And what are they using for a sailboat?
it's a
Is it a
20-some foot
Yeah, it is.
keel boats.
J24.
I don't remember what they are. I'm sure somebody's told me one time or another, but.
Yeah,
Hmm?
It might be an Ensign. I saw an Ensign.
go online, all their programs, kids and
Yeah.
Share and the other one are all.
Talking about their rental?
Is it
So they have a sailboat sharing program, and they also,
That's a 20-foot J boat.
is it J24?
yeah, okay.
So last time they could come speak with us?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We're gonna have all parks and stuff?
We're just Parks and Rec every day, all day. You know that.
Let's continue here. Sponsor letters, we sent about 80 of them out last week to fund the concerts. Thank God Jackie went through them, and because there's probably 12 of them that were dead. Which again, I got a list, and that's all I'm doing is signing it, sending the letter out. So hopefully we get some good response back from those letters. Like I said, we did have a paint glass last Thursday, it was filled. We had a conflict here with a meeting, so we held it upstairs. Not the best social distancing, but they had a good time, a lot of laughs. The next one is here on the 22nd of April. We got information, we already got signups, $50 a team for the Cornhole League. The Spring League starts April 20th. Old Home Days, we set a date, April 27th at 6:30. We're inviting the community to take part in planning the Old Home Days. Letters have gone out to all past cardboard boat participants, because you know last year with the COVID and everything else, the whole thing was a bust. So we're gonna try and make sure that we get good participation this year. But again, we like the people that have helped with the past, whether it be the antique car show or the dinners, or participate with the camps, with the cooking, the historical society, that type of thing. The race, I got a gem here. One of the guys that was taking part in our yard sale in October, I find out he's a national, he's one of the best race coordinators around. He ran Blackstone Millville for years. He's a Hall of Fame coach. And as the yard sale took place, we started talking. I told him I used to coach cross country. He did. One thing led to another. He's in Florida. He's coming back June 1st. And I talked to him about a race. I'd like to do it. It's called Run to the Beach. His name is Kevin Maloney. So he's agreed to help us with that as far as Old Home Days. But again, we want more input from the community on this. So April 27th, 6:30, we're gonna hopefully have it right here and just welcome anybody that wants to come and either volunteer or has an idea for a program. Another gentleman by the name of Tom Mahan. He lives, I think, out on Farm Island. I guess he's run a successful mile swim race in New Jersey, and he contacted us to see if we'd like to do that. He would be the coordinator, so we're looking into that. We are having a little bit of a hard time with the WSI. We got one that needs a brand new one and another one that needs a renewal through the Red Cross, through online. It's not the most available. Talking to Wolfboro about it, there's a situation in Rochester that they're going to be running swim lessons without WSIs. And again, it's the Red Cross certificate I passed, or the parent says, I want my kid to learn how to swim. So it might be going that route there, of the non-WSI, and I'll find out about that next week. But the WSI class, it's not like they're running, sometimes you gotta go travel 2 hours, 3 times a week or something like that. So anyway, the other thing I got on Friday, it's just something that, it actually mentions Selectmen in it, and it's that HB 11. It's just legislation that they're looking at now, and it was passed the committee 18-2 in the general court, but it's basically kind of like eliminates the defense of anybody in your program as far as an employee or a volunteer about making decisions. So if you read it and maybe agree with it, again, that might be a call to a selectman or to a state rep or whatever, to hopefully it gets voted down, but it don't look like something that's gonna help Parks and Rec. So,
No, I don't think it's gonna help anybody, actually.
say that again, Chip?
I don't think it's gonna help anybody.
No. So I just wanted to
Getting people to volunteer to work in local government's hard enough.
Yeah.
And if you throw liability out, and even if, and my reading of other articles about this is that you wouldn't be held personally responsible, but the town would be responsible for your personal behavior. All that does is it changes our
Just jacks up our insurance.
liability insurance from 36,000 to 136,000. So it doesn't really help anybody. And typical libertarian.
So you guys, it's not new to you guys, then?
No.
No.
God, no, it's been all over the internet.
No, because ultimately we're responsible for your actions. So the cause of action might be against Dennis, but it's gonna be against us as well.
Right.
Funded by the taxpayers. We're not helping.
Yeah, funded by the taxpayer.
It's all,
Towards what end?
yes.
That's it. See, sorry, they're gonna put you before me next time. All right, I'll get
So,
in touch
are you doing the Easter egg hunt or anything?
No, we're not. I've been in touch with the principal, and he has a holiday committee he had to check with. I said we would run it. We could do it during school, we could do it on the weekends. I could get the stuff, your kids, your people could run it in the gym. He says, I'll have to get back to you, I gotta check with my holiday committee. Never got back. No Easter egg hunt.
So do we have to run it with the school, or
Do I?
do we have to run it with the school?
Well, I offered it to them, you know, any little holiday, like we ran a Thanksgiving scavenger hunt, and, you know.
Right.
And again, there's still, I mean, I'm drooling at the bit to get in their gym, and we still can't get in there.
Well, but he has no control over that.
No, I know.
That's the school board, so, and I think for this year, the gym's not gonna be available.
Right.
And maybe when things loosen up. I guess my question with respect to the Easter egg hunt is this something that you run, or is it something that you run in conjunction with somebody? And could it be something that Parks and Rec ran without
I mean,
participation?
my first year, I think I was on the job 2 weeks, and we ran an Easter egg hunt. Pulled it, we did it in the gym, and it went over good.
Yeah.
And then last year, we didn't have it.
Right,
We had the Easter egg scavenger hunt where they drove around town and took pictures, and that weekend we gave out the prizes and stuff. But right now, there's nothing planned.
okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, thank
See you
you.
soon.
Steve, come on down.
Kind of frozen in place.
Yeah.
This is for the Vasaki Association. They're going to apply for a grant to study the Elm River. This is based on the watershed plan that we did. Further analysis, and then they found out about this great grant program recently. It's been there's been a couple of projects over in Belknap County that have worked out pretty well. So the grant is to study the stream, particularly the fish resource and the habitat and food supply that's associated with that. And because fish require good quality water, so any spin-off is, reflects water flowing into Winnipesaukee. And the study could result in information to create projects, particularly for fish habitat, but also to solve, like, if there was an erosion problem somewhere. And we know there are some up there, particularly on the lower end. Then the grant funding from the same source could be used to do that. There's been a very successful program over at, it's not Belknap, but it's from Gunstock down to Winnipesaukee. There's a stream that comes down there, and they had some severe erosion problems in a couple of places, and it was lacking in fish habitat. So, a short explanation, fish can't live in a stream if they have to swim all the time. It just takes too much energy. So they need these little hydraulics where they can sit and watch the food to go by and eat. So it's all based on the number of those hydraulics that are there. And before man took over and started managing forest around the streams, trees would die or fall into the stream and create little dams
and create pools, riffles, and backwaters. And that's really what the fish are looking for. When we manage our timber resources, we tend to harvest those kind of trees before they get too old and fall in. So most of our streams today lack that kind of woody structure that creates good fish habitat. So today we're starting to figure that out and use programs to put wood back into the stream. A recent project up in, I remember that place now. It's a state forest up north. They increased the amount of brook trout fish population by between 10 and 16 times more fish just by adding this habitat. Basically by taking wood from surrounding area and moving it in and settling it into the stream. And there are different types of engineering to do that. And it can be, it's most desirable to do by hand, but sometimes in a bigger stream, you have to actually use equipment. And that takes cooperation from landowners and stuff. So there's a lot of planning that has to go into it. We have to start with what are the needs, and that's what this study was for. And we'd like to ask for a letter of support from the selectmen for this project.
So do you have a draft available?
I
mean, that makes it easiest, is if you can give us something that says, you know, based upon,
I could get one. I could
Yeah.
get one or
Yeah.
do it myself.
you know, Pat might have something that she can suggest.
Yeah.
That way we are more likely to hit all
Yeah.
the points that, in her experience, helps with the process.
The timeline's a little short, unfortunately. They have to get the application in by April 12th, so
Okay?
we have to move fast.
So I'll make a motion that we have the chair sign a letter drafted by our Conservation Commissioner supporting the Melvin River study project.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Fast enough for you, Steve?
Well, I'm here. I found out about this after I made the appointment.
By the way.
We've been working for some time with the wall family on an easement. I think both of you have heard me talk about it before, but Guy hasn't.
Actually, Guy has. Guy watches the meetings faithfully.
So Sally Wallwall, before she passed away, started this effort. Even her mother, who originally purchased this property, had talked to her about doing this for a while. And then she talked to the Conservation Commission, and we were talking about how to do the document and what would be involved. And she found out she had cancer, and it was a pretty short time. So all the wheels stopped turning for a while, and took her husband a while to recover from it. And now he wants to continue doing this in her behalf to get it done. This last sheet here, the area that's highlighted in yellow is already conserved. That includes the old Hurlburt farm up on Prospect Road, and then Kate Nesbitt has donated an easement, a conservation easement on the 32.3 acres, and then more recently on the 15.4 acres. And they're all contiguous, and then this one is the lot 1, 4.3 acres, would be in the easement, and that connects to the Hurlbut Farm one. And that's specifically what they wanted to do, was try to connect all that conserved area with the lake, so that wildlife could go down to the lake if they wanted to. So And most recently, they figured out where to put the boundaries, to keep it away from the developed stuff that's already developed. And that's the top piece.
Mhm.
And they're at the point where they need to pay to have this surveyed. So they just wanted to make sure everybody's still on board with this before you actually give the surveyor the green light to get it done.
So
The
so
commission's
my
very
question,
happy with it.
I guess my question is, what's the is there any downside to this?
There's no downside to it, as far as we know.
Right.
It just conserves more land, it does provide a corridor down to the lake. That's as much as they can squeeze out of there without getting it to develop. The only issue is there's a driveway that goes through it. So that's written into the easement, the draft easement document, that they would be allowed to maintain that as it exists now, and there's a little buffer on either side. I don't remember what it is, but it's not, maybe 24 feet or something like that. But, that's the only exception, otherwise it's pretty much our standard easement document.
And they retain ownership, we're just getting the conservation easement.
They retain the ownership, but they agree not to develop. That's standard
So
conservation.
we don't have to worry about creating a substandard lot or any of that stuff.
No,
And we've got a carport that's sitting right on the border of the conservation easement. There you go. Yeah. And most of it's wetlands by the looks of it.
there's quite a bit of wetland up here. It's not like an open, it's a forested wetland. So if you were walking out there right now, it'd probably be about 25% puddles. But during most of the year, you could actually walk anywhere out there. It's just what's called a hydric soil underneath the.
And are there any other restrictions of usage, timbering?
No, they can
Recreational.
manage forest resources under this.
Okay. And managing forest resources in conjunction with the Conservation Commission?
Now, you haven't seen the document yet, because we haven't actually come to you to say, would you accept this?
Or, so what we're doing today is just accepting a concept?
We're just making sure that everybody's okay with the boundaries, so that he won't have to pay twice, to have an adjustment made or something like that.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, as long as his septic system and well are in compliance, he's way out of compliance as far as setback from the lake, but I'm sure the house is 1,000,000 years old anyway. So just that we're not creating a situation that's unmanageable from a resident standpoint, having a septic system and a well and all that sort of thing.
Shoreline Protection Act, which actually would determine whether it's a non-conforming lot or not, would consider the whole 5.3 acres as part of what's called the calculation you do for a non-permeable surfaces.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that reflects on drainage. So I think that's the only restriction. Anything else is,
Well, I don't think you should house quite that close.
So you're comfortable with the boundary he has set out here
yeah,
on the conservation?
yeah, at first, Sally's husband suggested something thinner. And we said, if you're gonna do a corridor for wildlife down it, you've gotta make it as wide as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they expanded it out, so it goes around a leach field and it goes around a carport they have there.
Mhm.
But otherwise, it takes in as much practical space as they can.
It looks like it runs right along the back of the carport,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, the easement document allows them, I think, about 12 feet to egress in order to do maintenance on the building. But it's the same as far as preserving the vegetation and everything goes right up to the back.
So do you need anything from us at this point?
Nope, just making sure you're on board.
We're on board.
When we present this, and it's after it's surveyed and we have the document finalized, and we bring it in, we don't have any issues associated with the boundaries.
So, and obviously, as we get to doing the documentation, town council needs to be engaged in reviewing that as well.
Yeah.
Just like we always do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in ongoing conversations with Rick about these types of items, Rick Sager.
With who?
With the town attorney,
Oh.
Rick Sager.
We haven't been on the previous ones. We haven't involved her. I don't think you asked me to. But we use a standard easement document. It's the same document, base document that we use with Lake Trees Conservation Trust. I can do that if you want.
I think it makes sense.
Well, yeah, we would at least review the base document.
Yeah.
Make sure
Okay, I'll put it on the schedule.
falling into a trap.
All right. Anything else, Steve?
Yes, I forgot to ask, the bridge at Sodom Road, I remember there were plans for that, is
The what?
to
It was
reconstruct the bridge on Sodom Road.
So we did that, what, 3 years? We did a repair,
Yeah,
right, several years ago.
okay, so that's done.
So replacement of that bridge is off the table. That's not to say at some point in the future it won't need to be.
Yeah, it's still a listed bridge.
Yeah,
So that grant doesn't require, but probably to be competitive, you need match, what's called match for it. And a project like that, as long as it was done properly, would count as match. The Lions lot, if we get the timing right on acquiring that, that would be counted as a match.
A match for this Melvin.
for the grant, yeah.
It's counted as matching funds.
Mhm.
Okay. And they always also want the bridge on New Road fixed? This is the Melvin River?
Yeah, I went back to that.
Right.
And I have one more question about this. When I was contacted about this, the consultant, which is FB Environmental and Lakeland Association, asked me, FB Environmental, by the way, they did the watershed plans.
Right,
They asked me about the town's ability to do any of these projects in the future. For example, the ones you reviewed for County Road and the boat launch.
you got the one at River Reach.
Yeah. And they generally, when they have these kind of improvement projects, if the town has the capability of doing it, they'd rather do that than go get a contractor. They find that the money goes a little farther that way. So they were wondering about the town's capability of doing any of these projects. And I said, well, we don't actually have a public works department, and we have an elected road agent.
So our capability to do projects, and from my view, is more associated with getting them in the schedule, getting them in the budget. You know, whether the road agents' crews they can certainly do some of this work, but the costs associated with doing the projects, we need to make sure that we make a provision for.
Sure, yeah.
Whether it's And depending upon how big the project is, in my view, it becomes a separate article on the warrant. Or if it's an incidental cost, it just, the provision is built into the
Well, in
budget.
this case, it would be a grant application.
And I'm not certain that the premise is right. Having a road agent or a public works department do a project is not cost-free.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah,
and contracting that out
So they're
is
talking
not
about,
cost prohibitive all the time.
so do this study, and let's say we come up with a couple of projects, and we already have some on the table, anyway, that were part of the watershed plan.
Right.
So we would actually go out and try to find grant funding to cover that project. And in the grant funding, if you say that the town is going to do the project, it looks better, and from their perspective, it generally costs less to have the municipality actually do the work rather than go out and find a contractor.
And so I think the grant funding is great, but that gets piggybacked with town funding,
Yeah.
all right? The grant funds part of it,
Yeah.
but doesn't fund all of it.
Yeah, it would be something like,
So from my perspective, one of the things that has to happen is, we've got the watershed plan, we have some projects that are identified, but nobody's had a conversation at this point about how do we get engaged, which ones do we want to chase and when?
yep. We're not there yet. All we wanted to know was whether the town had the capability to do any, and the willingness to do any of these projects.
Well, we could,
Or they be contracted out.
I think we could, well, the only thing we can say, and the only thing that they should expect us to say, is that we have the ability to do them. But I'm not gonna allow some manager of a grant fund determine how we manage the financial affairs of the town. I mean,
Yeah.
there could be local contractors who can do the job more efficiently, faster, and cheaper than our road agent can do it. So we're
Yeah.
not supposed to save any money, you know, and that's a decision we got elected to do. They didn't get elected to do that decision. So I guess the short answer is we're capable, but we're gonna remain active in the
Well,
decision.
we
making.
retain the decision as to how it gets done. So, but again, my thought is, the way we go forward is, we do have a list of some projects. We haven't had any conversations at this point that I'm aware of which one we want to try and engage first, when we want to try and get to it.
Right.
And all that needs to happen before we get into the budget cycle for the year. And ideally, put together a schedule and say, here's the ones we'd like to do over the next several years. We'd like to do this one next year, this one the year after, or, whatever.
I never done one of these. I went to the rollout of two of them. I mean, the go see it afterwards thing, and everybody explained who did what. And in one case, the city of Laconia, they asked the city of Laconia, would you like to do this project? It was already designed. And before we go out with the contractor, would you like to do it? They said, yeah. It would round out their workload that they had for the year and fit into their program. So they wanted it. And then the other one.
As you know, cities operate totally differently than towns.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
Right. So,
The other one that I saw, the town, I think it was the planner was involved in the watershed plan and said they wanted to do any work right up front. So when they wrote the grant act, they said that the town was gonna do the work.
well, and again,
It's
There are
just something I'm
towns-
witness to, I'm not trying to like give this.
no, there are towns that have highway departments, okay? So, you got a whole crew that works for you, and you pay them regardless, and do we want to fit this project in, and now all we're talking about is a difference in material cost. That's different than the way we operate, because we only pay for labor that we use.
Right.
So, I guess the short answer from my perspective is yes, the town's interested in participating. That doesn't mean that we're gonna send a guy out there with a shovel, but it does mean, at least from my view, that, you know, we schedule these things, we move forward, and we say, here's the one we wanna go for next. You know, we're gonna budget money for it. We're gonna get grant money to support it. And the grant support for those is pretty healthy, as I recall, right, percentage-wise.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I could foresee a situation where, say, the Melvin River needs 4 or 5 different mitigation projects.
do it as a big project.
That you could say, okay, we're gonna adjust our
Yep.
highway department budget to accommodate for this, because it's gonna take us 10 years to get it done, or 5 years, or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we operate on warrant articles, which is different from a lot of cities.
My understanding, the way it would go is, so this study gets done, and a certain amount of work gets identified, potential work. Some of it would be involved in the erosion idea, and some of it would be fish habitat.
Mhm.
And then we would be back presenting the results of that, and then say, those results would, just like the watershed plan, would identify different possibilities for work.
Right.
And then from there, we would probably say, well, we can apply for grants to get some of this work done. How would you like to manage it? I would guess it'd be something like that.
So I would just suggest that this year, with the watershed plan in hand, we need to develop a way forward with some of these projects. And that's the entree to getting them on the schedule. And if there's something that can be done easily with no real budget impact, that's great. But most of these are gonna have a cost associated, and we wanna build it in a planned way going forward.
I know when I saw the Laconia roll out, we were kind of saying, isn't it great, we got this all done with grant funding, didn't cost the taxpayers, you know, they paid somewhere else, but the taxpayers of Laconia to get this project done. And I know if we're gonna keep our water clean, there's a lot of projects out there that need to be done, and it's not all gonna be funded by grants.
Right.
If it's gonna get done.
Right, and the fact of the matter is the taxpayers in Laconia, if town employees did the work, they paid for it. May not be additional costs over other stuff, but you got an employee, whether he's running a shovel over here or he's leaning on a shovel someplace else, he's still making the
I
same
think the
money.
grant paid for,
Huh?
I think the grant paid for.
The grant paid for their labor,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
100%?
I wasn't in that.
Well,
But that's the way it sounded,
that's a conversation for another day, but,
yeah.
okay,
Okay,
all right.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, go through the rest of this stuff fairly quickly.
Yeah, I can't stay much later.
Yeah, me neither. All right, so signature files. First is the appointment of Gordon Hunt to a vacancy on the library board, with term expiring March of 2022. We already approved that,
We did.
so. All right, next is appointment of Lynn Walsh as an alternate to the Conservation Commission, with term expiring June of 2024.
I'll move to join that.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got a notice of intent to excavate for tax map 32-2-5. estimated 1,000 yards of sand. All right, and a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second. Request in change of employee compensation for Clay Gallagher. We already approved that, correct?
Yep.
All right. Application for property tax credit. This is a veteran's credit for 52-3-73.
And then it's all been researched.
Yep.
On the we sign.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we got a yield tax assessment for timber for 3-1-1 and 3-1-2. And the total amount of the tax is $42.87, is that correct?
It's in the, if you go to the second page, I think it's right in the middle of the square.
Yeah, yep, $42.87.
In the signature.
Hmm?
I'll move that we sign that.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have a yield tax assessment for 2-3-4 in the amount of $263.08.
I'll move we sign.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to the action items. First item is something that's been deferred here for a few weeks, the request from the Heppies to have the postage meter returned from the Melvin post office to theirs. And we set it aside at a time when we didn't have a full board. And so we now have a full board available. A little bit of background, several years ago, I don't remember how many, the meter was moved from Center Tuftonboro to Melvin at a time when the previous administration was closing post offices and there were one post office in town was closed and turned into a branch of Wolfboro. The other one, of course, is just a contract. And I think it was done with the idea that more revenue in the sole remaining standalone post office would help secure its future. As things played out subsequent to that, the post offices in the area that were closed were reopened because there was enough pushback against taking away the small post offices. And they're interested in having it back, and I don't see that there's a particular, from my perspective, there's no particular issue against it, other than we have an ongoing service issue at Center Tuftonboro, and I would certainly like to be able to have a conversation with the Heppies about having mail available timely, turning certified and registered stuff as it's presented rather than at some point in the future, and that sort of thing. And that has been an issue. I'm not sure the best way to leverage moving it forward to a better level of service.
I can comment on some of that.
I'm sorry?
I can comment on some of those issues.
Yep.
The Heppies now have an employee who was a true postal employee before she retired, which may help that situation. I know that they're aware of the town's concerns and are trying to work with that. The other issues, not issues, but points that I would make is that Center Tuftonboro is the only postal address that even mentions Tuftonboro.
Yep.
And that the seat of town government, if you will, is Center Tuftonboro. So I'm fully in favor of moving it back, and that would be my opinion.
Yeah, and to address Bill's questions or issues, I think it's far easier to negotiate from the position of patron than it is.
Support, so to speak?
Right, I mean, if obviously if we go along with this move back to Center Tuftonboro Post Office, we've got a lot more leverage on service than we would have without that. I'm not saying it's gonna dramatically change everything, but we're certainly a major customer of theirs at that point in time. So I'm gonna make a motion that we do move the postage meter back to Tuftonboro.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The other items in here was, we've already talked about the location of the new police facility, and
And how do you wanna handle those questions for Dan?
so,
Do you want us to?
I think, I would appreciate it if you would pen some words, I'll pen some words. I'm gonna sit down with Andy, get some information from him, and what we're gonna do is
Why don't I do
put together the best explanation we can.
I'll do the financial questions,
All right,
and then as far as the facility size, I mean, you get the question, why do we even need a police department? But, I mean,
Right.
as far as the facility size is concerned, maybe that's a group thing.
Yep, yep.
We can bring our thoughts to it on Friday check signing or something.
yep.
Because a lot of it's generated by the grant and,
Well, part of what we're looking at in terms of increase in size is the ability to separate somebody that's brought in from the general office, to have an interviewing area, to have a holding area. Part of the increase in size includes incorporating where we're storing records now that are outside the police office into the facility as well. But yes, I think we need to work that answer to.
and then it could give Guy an opportunity to actually go in the police department and walk around and take a look.
Actually, 2008, I did that.
It
That was
isn't-
part of the study.
You and I both remember 1997 when we built that, because I remember taking the barn down and taking it up and putting the
Right.
barn back up in that place.
Is that where that barn went?
That little yellow barn that's right next to my daughter's house.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
That's the frame. But at any rate, 25 years later, you can take a look inside of that and see how limited the space was to begin with and how obviously in need of space it is
I don't have
now.
any doubt about that.
Yeah.
My concerns with it, maybe not as big, but they do need something. There's no doubt in my mind about that at all.
And some of it's being generated, and you may need to kind of bring yourself up to speed with the emails that the architects put out there. Some of it's being generated by design requirements for grants, design requirements for
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
compliance.
we get it, yeah, we get into things like, okay, so it all has to be handicapped, everything has to be
Yes.
handicap accessible.
For sure.
Well, that increases the size of the space.
Of course it does. Of course it
Et
does.
cetera, yeah,
So they have room for a bigger door to swing and all
Right.
kinds of, yeah.
right.
I will drop in though.
I'll get busy on whatever questions I can have, and then I guess you can collate them
Yeah,
at the end of the
Yep.
day.
yep. So he needs it by the 2nd of
April, I think.
April, so we've got a little time to work on it. And he did come to me several weeks ago and ask about this, and we sort of identified that if we had some question and answers to go in the Times, maybe that would help deal with,
Some of the public's concerns.
you know,
So he's gonna print it out as question and answer, is he gonna?
my understanding is he's gonna print it out as question and answer. Here's the question that somebody
Okay.
submitted, here's our response. So, yeah, all right. Office selection, I think we did that, right? Okay, board representatives. So your predecessor was on the Conservation Commission and on the CIP, and I don't know.
I have a very vested interest in conservation. I love it. I'd love to be on that committee. I would accept that with no problems whatsoever.
Great,
CIP, I think, is a wonderful tool. It certainly gives us a lot of information to base warrant articles and budgets and things on.
Okay.
And I think that would be just fine. If everybody else is happy with what they're doing, I'll accept those two positions.
all right,
We're fine, you just have to remember that there's one member of the Board of Selection who really treats the CIP as an advisory committee and not the law.
Right.
So be
well,
careful
and
about
that's,
what you commit us to.
and that's what it is.
Well, I'm well aware that if CIP was to say these warrant articles put us over capital capacity, then we have to realize that we might have to adjust the tax rate or something should they all pass. And I understand what you're saying, Chip, very well.
Yeah,
Yep, it's good.
And are there any other committees that are, is
I-
it, anybody know Parks and Rec?
I think it's you.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
you
you have
think
been.
it's me.
Oh.
I know that's what you think.
Does anyone else want? Is that
I
what you
just,
said?
I don't think, we're on the
Hmm?
air,
what's that?
I'll make my editorial comments when we're in private.
Yeah, all right.
I'm just not certain I'm an effective communicator with,
Really?
yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know, we'll have a chat, we can decide.
Yeah.
And the agricultural, is that,
So I'm the ag com rep,
okay,
and I certainly would be happy, could give it up to somebody else. We gotta be careful with respect to, it's a land use board.
Right.
You can't have too much overlap with respect to that, so.
right.
If you have an interest in being on the agricultural commission, we'll research it and make sure that there isn't gonna be a conflict between that and being on conservation. If not, we can just let it hang as it is.
I'm truly not interested, but if you'd like to research it and find out, I'll give it some more consideration.
All right,
Thanks. Yep.
okay, good.
Are you interested in Parks and Rec? Did you answer them?
I didn't know if I was asked if I was interested in Parks and Rec.
Okay, yes, I think we did hear that Chip is happy to,
I might take on ag, I'm just concerned about my, ability to have a reasonable conversation all the time.
Huh.
It just- And it's a
Well, I don't see that at all.
It's a personality thing, but
Well, how about we'll consider that one too.
anyway.
All
At the
right.
moment, I don't think it's a panic.
What's that?
I don't think it's a panic right at the moment.
No?
Yeah.
All right, well, so let's give that some thought and revisit it. All right. So we have several pieces of correspondence here. Letter of resignation from Mary Ann Murray. A scope of work on monitoring of 19-mile brook by FB Environmental. Got email from a New Hampshire Solar Choices, wondering to see if the town has any land available that they would consider leasing for a solar farm. So the only thing I can think of is the capped landfill and whether there's
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that myself when I read it. I'm not certain the DES would allow us to build a structure on top of that, where it's got that paper product capping.
yeah,
material.
yeah.
Mhm.
So what happens if we respond to this guy and say that we would consider it? Is there any,
No, nothing happens. I mean, he'd probably come and talk to us. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know what he wants to pay for a lease either.
no, no,
So, and how
So-
big a farm is he looking for? Or maybe,
Construction.
he only
for-
makes money when he puts up solar panels, so.
Right.
So,
The
you know,
better.
who knows? But I would suggest that if we invite him in to have a conversation, that would make some sense.
yeah.
I agree.
We'll explore it. We're not agreeing to anything at this point.
Right.
Okay, Coalition Communities 2.0 had a follow-up meeting last Monday. This is on the school funding with the SWEPT, and approved a budget for this year, and was like 60-some, I apologize, I don't have it all in front of me, 60-some thousand. Our share of that was, I want to say, less than $2,000.
Right.
So they've hired a lobbyist to get engaged with the legislature, so we'll see where it goes. Copy of the long-term exotic aquatic management plan, which is updated every year. Notice on the hearing for Board of Adjustment, library statistics, letter to Mr. Hunter, ZBA notice from Belmont with respect to a hearing on a cell tower. The world is going crazy for cell towers now that 5G is coming on. I think that's all we have in here. So, yeah. All right, Selectmen's update. Chip?
All right, I have updated you as we've gone along a bit. I did get the final accounting for the Herbert Trust funds that are being distributed, and a notification of scholarships that are going out there. I also was looking for a revenue report from Diane, and I'll ask her about that later today.
Yep.
Because I was getting some complaints about the pilot receipts. And also, we've gone back to a certain extent for Camp Belknap and their ongoing dispute with McGorder. But now I hear that from several different people that Belknap is the only one of the YMCA camps that doesn't offer a Carroll County discount for residents of Carroll County, or any local discounts for Tuckahoe residents, which would inure to the benefit of their payment in lieu of taxes. So I might blast off a missile to staff and see what we can come up with. The roads are closed, so, and I saw that we had some tree work done, and I don't know when our next visit from Jim Bean is.
I think,
Is he ever coming back, Kathy?
Not unless he gets vaccinated, he said.
All right, then we need
once he's
a,
vaccinated, he says, yeah.
we need a calculation of the number of trees that need to be removed around town, from town roads, the number of trees that Lovering did in the 2 days that they worked here, and the cost for the 2 days of tree removal. So we can do a calculation as to the real need, or the real monetary need of the tree removal. Okay? I'm available if he needs to have that calculation fleshed out.
Yep. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so planning, I mentioned already coalition communities and their process. They seem to be moving forward, so that's good. Planning board last Thursday, we only had a consultation on somebody with respect to a subdivision they were going to do of a lot into 2 lots. Next meeting, we have a hearing, public hearing on cell tower down on Tuckahoe Neck. On
Eagle,
hmm?
is that the Eaglemere?
Eaglemere, yes, down on Eaglemere Road. So that's public hearing on the first Thursday in April. I think that's all I have. That's
And
all
are
I
they
can
gonna
do.
get the camera working or the public participation working? Because I did hear about that too.
This is,
Yep,
they can call in whenever, they
Yep.
can go in here anytime.
Yep. and they did not, the camera was not reinstalled before the planning board meeting, so there was computer and calling access, but it was just audio, not watching the camera, so, but the camera will be running for the next meeting. Yep. Guy, you have anything?
Being brand new, not a lot. Periodically, I'll be bringing in some public input because people can't come to a 9 o'clock meeting, but other than that, I think it's gone very well, and I'm pleased to be here.
Well, we're pleased to have you,
Thank you.
and just keep it that way, will you?
I'll do my best.
All right, do we have any other business?
You got Joe.
Well, he's public input,
Oh.
so,
I just, excuse me, I just wanted to mention, Bill, you're still on the milfoil committee, and
Yes.
you're still doing the farm loss joint deal.
yes.
My question would be to Guy, did you have to resign from the budget committee now that you're a selectman?
I was not a budget committee member, so I didn't have to,
Oh, you
John.
weren't?
No,
Oh, okay, must be
I'm a
myself.
cemetery trustee, and I cannot find anything that says that the 2 offices are in conflict.
Okay,
And that's consistent with what I've seen,
Yes.
so,
And in some towns, the cemetery trustees are the selectmen, like Wolfboro, for example.
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I missed it.
But, yeah, it tends to be, I know trustees with trust funds are kind of conflict, for instance.
Yes.
So if there's fiduciary involved, then they want the separation, but other than that. All right, anything else?
That's it, thank you.
All right,
What are we gonna do?
adjourn?
Adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.